Did Donald Trump just make Canada great again? It's pretty amazing that it took a tweet from Donald Trump threatening Canada with a 25% tariff if we do not clean up fentanyl and illegal drugs and crime going into the United States for Canada to get serious on two issues, our border and our drug problem that we have in the streets. And if you've been to a major city in Canada, you know there's a massive drug problem in the streets of essentially every major city in the country. It's terribly tragic. Between January 2016 and September 2022, there were more than 34,400 apparent opioid toxicity deaths. Obviously heartbreaking. And there are just these tent cities in Canada are popping up all over the country. It's incredibly just demoralizing to see. It's obviously brutal for the people living in these tents. It's clearly probably the furthest thing from an optimal situation, but it's amazing that it took Trump tweeting, just a tweet. He's not even in office yet. He's the president-elect, to get Canada. I've never seen Canada be so unified on cleaning up the drug problem and cleaning up the immigration issue with our border. But more importantly, I think for Canada at the moment is our drug problem, because Canada, we have an immigration problem, but it's not as exactly the same as USA. USA is more illegal immigration. Canada just had way too much legal immigration in recent years. But, I mean, it's incredible that it took Trump to get leaders from all across Canada to finally start caring about the opioid problem.
Fall under Ontario. We'll be there to support them. But it's not just Ontario, it's across the entire border. And we need to tighten that up.
Right. Did you have any concerns that the premiers aren't all speaking?
So there's Doug Ford. And again, it's probably too strong to say finally start caring, but in a unified way, Canada's not doing enough to address our drug problem. Here's Wab Kinew, leader of the NDP in Manitoba.
But my message to you as Manitobans is this. If we invest in law enforcement here at home and we crack down on drug trafficking, if we're able to ensure that we have a strong border, if we show the Americans that we're investing in the Canadian Armed Forces here at home, what's the downside? These are all priorities that Manitobans support. These are areas where we want to see investment that would help us here at home, making communities safer, helping to grow our economy. And if at the same time that we make those investments here in Manitoba, that it's going to reach an American audience who wants to hear those things, that's how we get to that win-win situation that people want to see. But my message to you is Manitoba.
So again, that's incredible that it took Trump for even the leader of Manitoba there to say, hey, let's crack down on the border. Let's get serious about this. It'll be good for both countries. How come we couldn't do this before? It's incredible. Here's Pierre Poilievre, leader of the opposition right now, talking about the Trump tariff threat.
The United States is the greatest economic and military superpower in the history of the world, and they are our neighbor. The U.S. is responsible for $1.2 trillion of our trade. We trade almost twice as much with the Americans as we trade with the rest of the world combined. Trade with the U.S. is 40% of our economy. President Trump yesterday made an unjustified threat of a 25% tariff on our already weak and shrinking economy. Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland were surprised, amazingly. Everyone else knew something like this could be coming because President Trump had been talking about it for years on the campaign trail. Yet 20 days ago, Chrystia Freeland said, "Don't worry, Canada will be fine." Apparently, neither she nor Justin Trudeau were following what the incoming president was saying.
And here's one more from Pierre Poilievre talking about the opioid problem and how Canada should fix it. Independent of what Donald Trump is saying, we should. And finally, it seems like I haven't seen a message like this, again, in a long time, about the entire country basically focusing on cleaning up our drug problem in Canada.
And finally, on drugs. I don't want to stop drug overdoses to please Donald Trump. I want to stop drug overdoses so that there's not one more mother with her face buried in a pillow sobbing that she just lost her kid after 47,000 other Canadians have died. That's more than we lost in the Second World War. A 200% annual increase in drug overdose deaths have resulted from Justin Trudeau's radical liberalization of drugs. Justin Trudeau must put partisanship aside, not just for the sake of Team Canada, but for the sake of our people, and fully reverse his liberalization of drugs. Ban them, prosecute those who traffic in them, secure our borders against the illegal importation of fentanyl ingredients, put people in treatment and recovery to bring our loved ones home drug-free. That is necessary now more than ever.
And also, this is not an exhaustive list. I'll show one more of Alberta Premier Danielle Smith talking about the same issue. I also saw the BC Premier, and actually I'll quickly show the BC Premier commenting on this as well, because I think it shows across all different provinces of Canada, whether they're more conservative or more liberal, and even the leaders, whether they're like pretty far left or relatively far right, they all have a very similar message on these Trump tariffs.
Tuesday, while addressing a convention, BC's premier acknowledged improvements could be made at the border and that the province would stand together with the rest of the country.
We buy more American stuff than France and China and Japan and the United Kingdom combined. So we are negotiating, I believe, from a position of strength.
The U.S. is BC's largest export destination.
So I think that's interesting because that's a left-wing leader leading arguably our most left-wing province of British Columbia. And then the next clip I'll show is Danielle Smith, a right-wing leader leading probably our most right-wing province of Alberta.
About illegal drugs, illegal migrants. They think for the United States it's mainly an issue coming from Mexico. But from what you know of what's happening along our shared border, just what is coming from Canada into the United States?
Well, look, we've got a very serious opioid and fentanyl crisis in our province. It's we're seeing record numbers of deaths and have for a number of years. And we know that there are components coming in from British Columbia and the United States and then going back out the other way again. We've got to address that issue, not only for our own people, but now, of course, because the Americans have identified that too. We also see that with the open borders policy that the federal government has had for the last couple of years, I mean, 1.8 million people came into Canada in 2023, and the Americans have seen a doubling of the number of contacts at the Canadian border. So they're beginning.
So again, it's very, I think, a positive sign that Canada is finally starting to focus on these types of issues. I've made this point in other videos just as I'm closing here, that if you watch Canada's House of Commons, there's so much talk about carbon pricing, carbon pollution. We have massive problems in Canada. We have flat economy, housing crisis, opioid problems, border not as secure as it should be. It's good that we're focusing on this. This is great. I honestly would say thank you to Donald Trump. And with that, I'll finish the video. Let me know your thoughts, please, in the comments. Have a great day.